You are standing in a crowded room. Something goes wrong. Someone falls. Someone cries out. And you do not move. Neither does anyone else. Later you will wonder why. You will tell yourself you were confused, or that someone else must have already called for help, or that it simply happened too fast to react. But the real answer is far stranger. It has nothing to do with how much you cared. It has everything to do with how many people were standing next to you. This is one of the strangest discoveries in the history of psychology. The more people who witness an emergency, the less likely any single person is to help. Not because people are cruel, not because people are cowards, because something quietly shuts off in the brain the moment responsibility gets divided among a crowd. Let's go back to where this discovery began. In March of 1964, a young woman named Kitty Genovese was murdered outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. The attack lasted for an extended period of time. Newspaper reports at the time claimed dozens of neighbours heard her cries and did nothing. That specific account was later found to be exaggerated and in some details simply wrong. But the case captured public attention, and it captured the attention of two psychologists in particular. Bibb Latané and John Darley could not stop thinking about one question. If people are fundamentally decent, why would a crowd of witnesses fail to act? They suspected the answer wasn't about decency at all. They suspected it was about math. In 1968, they designed an experiment to test this. Participants sat alone in a room, communicating with other participants through an intercom, supposedly discussing personal problems. In reality, there were no other real participants. It was a recording. At one point, one of the voices on the intercom began to simulate a seizure, coughing and gasping and calling for help. Here is where it gets interesting. When participants believed they were the only other person listening, 85% of them left the room to get help almost immediately. But when participants believed there were 4 other people also listening, that number dropped to 31%. Same emergency, same sounds of distress, wildly different response, based entirely on how many other people the participant believed were also present. Latané and Darley called this diffusion of responsibility. When you are the only witness, the full weight of responsibility sits on you alone. There is no one to share it with. But the moment you believe others are also watching, that weight splits. You assume someone else will act. So does the next person. So does the person after that. The responsibility doesn't just get divided. In many cases, it evaporates entirely. Why would your brain work this way? Doesn't it make more sense to help regardless of who else is around? To understand this, you have to go back further than 1964. You have to go back to a time when humans lived in small groups, where every member knew every other member, and where social standing determined whether you ate that week or starved. In small ancestral groups, if something went wrong, there was no diffusion possible. Everyone could see exactly who did or didn't respond. Reputation was constantly on the line, and reputation determined survival. But something else was happening too. In situations of ambiguous danger, freezing and watching others wasn't always a mistake. It was often useful. If you didn't know whether a sound in the grass was a predator or the wind, the safest move wasn't always to act first. It was to look at what everyone else was doing before committing to a response. This is called social referencing, and it kept early humans from wasting energy, or worse, from acting rashly in situations that turned out to be false alarms. Psychologist Stanley Milgram once wrote extensively about obedience and social conformity, and although his most famous experiments centred on authority rather than bystanders, his broader conclusion supports the same theme. Humans are exceptionally sensitive to the behaviour of the people around them. You do not evaluate danger in isolation. You evaluate it partly by watching how everyone else is reacting. If the room is calm, you assume nothing is wrong, even if your gut says otherwise. This creates something researchers call pluralistic ignorance. Everyone in the room might privately feel that something is wrong, but because no one is visibly reacting, everyone assumes they must be misreading the situation. So everyone stays still. Everyone waits for someone else to break first. And because everyone is waiting for the same signal, no one ever gives it. Here is the counterintuitive twist. You would think that more witnesses means a higher chance someone competent will step in. Logically, it seems obvious. More people should mean more help, not less. But in emergency situations, more witnesses often means more confusion about who is responsible, more uncertainty about whether the event is actually an emergency, and more social pressure to appear calm rather than panicked. Psychologist Robert Cialdini's research on social proof reinforces this same idea from a different angle. People look to others to determine correct behaviour, especially in unfamiliar or ambiguous situations. Cialdini found that this instinct is strongest exactly when clarity is lowest, which is precisely when emergencies tend to happen. Nobody hands you a script that says, "This is officially a crisis. Please respond now." You have to infer it. And when everyone around you is inferring nothing, you infer nothing too. Think about how differently this plays out today. You are scrolling through a group chat. Someone shares something upsetting, a request for help, a sign that they might be struggling. Dozens of people see the message. The little indicator shows it's been read by everyone. But no one responds. Not because no one cares, because everyone assumes someone else, someone closer, someone more qualified, will say something first. The bystander effect hasn't disappeared in the digital age, it has simply changed its shape. Instead of a physical crowd on a sidewalk, it's now a crowd of read receipts. Social media comment sections work the same way. A post asking for real help gets buried under 1,000 likes and 0 direct responses. Online forums show the same pattern during moments of crisis. The size of the audience doesn't guarantee action. In many cases, it guarantees the opposite. So what actually breaks the pattern? Latané and Darley's later research found something crucial. The bystander effect weakens dramatically when responsibility becomes specific rather than general. If you are in a crowd and you point directly at one person and say, "You, call an ambulance," that individual almost always does it immediately. The diffusion collapses the moment responsibility is assigned rather than assumed. This single finding has changed how emergency response training works around the world. You are taught not to shout, "Somebody help," into a crowd, but to look directly at one person and give them a specific task. This tells you something important about your own behaviour in group settings, whether it's a public street or a group chat or a work meeting where everyone can see a problem, but nobody names it out loud. Diffusion isn't really about how many people are present, it's about how vague the responsibility feels. Vague responsibility invites silence. Specific responsibility invites action. Your ancestors weren't cowards for waiting to see what the group would do first. In a world with real, unpredictable threats, watching before acting could keep you alive. But that same wiring, built for small tribes where everyone could see everyone, now runs inside crowds of thousands or group chats of hundreds, where the diffusion multiplies far beyond anything your ancestors' brains were designed to calculate. Knowing this doesn't make the instinct disappear. It's still there, quietly running in the background every time you're one face among many. But it does give you something your ancestors didn't have, the ability to notice the moment it's happening and choose to be the one who breaks the pattern, to point, to name someone directly, to be the single voice that turns a vague, diffused crowd back into a group of individuals who each know exactly what they're responsible for. You are standing in a crowded room again. Something goes wrong. But this time, you understand exactly why everyone else isn't moving. And that understanding is the only thing standing between silence and the moment someone decides to be the one who does.